Ever get that feeling? Like, you're doing great in your profession, keeping up, but then there's this voice in the back of your head like, are you really up to date, though? Like, really?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Especially as licensed psychologists in California, right? It's
Yeah.
not just a good idea to stay sharp. It's like mandatory.
Exactly.
So that's what we're diving deep into today, this whole world of mandatory continuing professional development,
Yeah.
or CPD as they call it.
It's a mouthful, right?
It is?
But think of this as like your essential guide to CPD, you
Yeah.
know? We went through all the info to bring you the key stuff about keeping your license and really delivering your best work possible.
Yeah. And we'll explain why those rules are the way they are.
Right, exactly.
Because this is bigger than just checking boxes off for renewal.
Way bigger.
The California Board of Psychology, they actually define CPD as the continuing development of the multifaceted abilities needed for quality professional performance in one's area of practice.
Quite the definition.
It is.
It's about that commitment to being great at what you do, constantly learning and growing.
Right. So just to give you a heads up, we'll be covering the number of CPD hours you need, which is 36 every 2 years.
Okay.
We'll break down the specific training areas like laws and ethics, cultural diversity and social justice, and even supervision if you're in a supervisory role.
Got it.
And of course, the all-important record keeping, plus what happens if you don't meet those requirements.
Okay, let's jump right in.
Let's do it.
So bottom line, how many hours of CPD are we talking about here?
All right, so the core requirement for licensed psychologists in California to renew their license is 36 hours of CPD.
Okay.
Every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
Exactly.
All right.
So it's a biannual requirement, which means you got to complete those hours within each 2-year renewal cycle.
Got it.
It's like an ongoing investment,
In your professional growth.
36 hours over 2 years, that feels manageable.
Totally.
I imagine you can plan for that.
Yeah.
Now, I know there are some specific areas within those 36 hours that have more, specific requirements.
Yeah.
Let's dig into those mandatory training areas.
Okay, so the Board of Psychology really emphasizes a couple of key areas.
Okay.
First, you've got to complete at least 4 hours of training on laws and ethics.
Okay.
Relevant to psychology, of course, within each 2-year renewal period.
Makes sense.
Now, here's the interesting part. Those 4 hours, they can be fulfilled through any of the approved CPD activity categories.
Oh, so there's some flexibility there.
Exactly. So it could be like a workshop, a self-study course, or even certain professional activities you're already doing, as long as the content focuses on laws and ethics.
So as long as it lines up with legal and ethical guidelines in the field,
Yep.
and it qualifies as a CPD activity,
You got it.
those hours count towards that requirement.
Exactly.
That makes sense given how important it is to have a solid understanding of laws and ethics.
So, absolutely. It's the foundation of responsible practice.
For sure.
Yeah.
What's the other mandatory area?
Okay, the other big one is cultural diversity and shorter social justice. You need at least 4 hours of training in that area, also within each 2-year cycle.
Okay.
And just like laws and ethics, these hours can be from any approved CPD category.
Okay.
So again, lots of flexibility there.
I like that.
Yeah, it shows how the field is evolving,
Yeah.
and that practitioners need to be adaptable to different cultural and social contexts.
For sure. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of profession.
Exactly.
Now, what about supervision? I know there's a specific requirement for that if you're, supervising other professionals.
Right. If you're currently supervising or planning to supervise, 6 of your 36 CPD hours need to be focused on supervision.
Got it.
Each renewal cycle.
Each renewal cycle.
Yep. This is straight from the California Code of Regulations, Section 1387.1b.
Okay, so it's not just any 6 hours. It has to be specifically about supervision,
Exactly right.
which makes sense. You're guiding and mentoring other professionals. That's a big responsibility.
Absolutely.
And there was that practice question about Dr. Sanchez, right?
Oh, yeah. That was a perfect example. Dr. Sanchez, as a primary supervisor, she's legally obligated to complete at least 6 hours of coursework on supervision every 2 years.
As part of her CPD requirement.
Exactly. It shows how that general rule applies in a real-life situation.
Well, so just to recap, we've got 36 hours every 2 years,
That's the big one.
with at least 4 hours in laws and ethics 4, in cultural diversity and Churdor social justice.
Uh-huh.
And if you're supervising, 6 hours specifically on supervision.
You got it.
So important to keep those categories straight when you're planning your CPD activities.
Absolutely.
Now, what about keeping track of all of this? It seems like you really need to stay organized with your records.
Oh, it's crucial. California Code of Regulations, Section 1397.61e is very clear on this.
Okay.
You have to keep documentation proving you completed your continuing education requirements.
Okay.
And here's the kicker. You have to keep those records for 4 years after your license renewal period ends.
4 years.
4 years. And you have to be ready to show those documents to the Board of Psychology if they ask.
It's like a professional audit trail.
Exactly. It's all part of being a responsible professional.
Now, we all know life happens, sometimes things come up, and it might be tough to meet these requirements right on schedule.
Oh, for sure.
So what happens if a psychologist's license goes inactive or, even becomes delinquent?
Good question. So if a psychologist decides to put their license on inactive status,
Okay.
they're actually exempt from the CPD requirements during that time.
Oh, that's good to know.
But, and this is important, if they want to reactivate their license,
Okay.
they have to show proof of completing all 36 hours of CPD for the 2 years before they apply for reactivation.
So it's paused, not erased.
Exactly.
Got it. So going inactive gives you a break from CPD,
Sure.
but to come back, you have to catch up.
Yep.
Now, what about a delinquent license? That sounds a bit more serious.
It is. To renew a delinquent license within 3 years of its expiration date, you need to prove you completed 36 hours of CPD during the 2 years before applying for renewal. That's according to California Code of Regulations, Section OBEN 1397.67b.
So whether your license is inactive or delinquent, you still have to show you've done the CPD to get back in good standing.
Precisely. You got to demonstrate that your knowledge and skills are up to date.
Okay, now what if a license is delinquent for more than 3 years? Are there bigger consequences then?
Oh, yeah. If a license stays delinquent for more than 3 years, it gets automatically canceled by the board.
Wow.
And then you have to start the whole licensing process over from scratch.
Oh, wow.
New application, all the eligibility criteria, all the exams.
So it's a lot more than just renewing.
It is a huge difference.
That's a strong motivator to keep your license active.
For sure. Or at least renew it within 3 years if you take a break.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, there is one exception to all of this.
Okay.
It has to do with the EPPP, the Examination for Professional Practice in Psychology. If you were licensed in California for at least 2 years before your license expired, and it stayed expired for over 3 years, you might not have to retake the EPPP.
Oh, that's good news.
Yeah, that's from California Code of Regulations, Section 1388.6a.
So if you had your license for a while, you might not have to go through that big national exam again.
Exactly.
But I imagine there are still other requirements, right?
Oh, yeah. You still have to file a complete application, pay all the fees, pass the California Psychology Law and Ethics Examination, the CPLEE.
Right.
And you can't have had any disciplinary actions from the board.
Okay, so it's still a big process.
Yeah, but at least skipping the EPPP is a big help.
For sure. Now, what if there are, truly unavoidable circumstances? Does the board ever give exemptions or extensions for CPD?
They do. The board's licensure committee can grant those, but only in specific situations, and you need written verification.
Okay.
One situation is active military service that prevents you from completing CPD.
Makes sense. Military service can really disrupt things.
Oh, for sure.
What are some other situations?
Well, if you're prevented from completing CPD due to health issues or what they call other good cause,
Okay.
good cause includes a total disability, physical or mental, that lasts for at least a year.
Okay.
Or if an immediate family member has a total disability and you have to care for them for at least a year.
Got it.
Those are situations where the board understands that completing CPD might not be possible.
So they have some flexibility, but it's not a free pass.
Exactly. You need proper documentation.
Now, what are the consequences if someone just ignores the CPD requirements or doesn't keep good records?
Well, California Code of Regulations, Section 1397.7a is very clear about that.
Okay.
If you don't complete your CPD hours or your documentation isn't good enough, your license can't be renewed until you fix the problem.
Okay.
And this is important. Practicing psychology in California without a valid license is grounds for disciplinary action.
That's serious business.
It is. It shows how important it is to take CPD seriously, not just for renewal, but to maintain your professional standing.
Yeah, you don't want to risk any disciplinary action that could affect your career.
Absolutely.
Now, we had that practice question about a psychologist licensed in another state wanting to work in California temporarily.
Right, Dr. Brown from Missouri.
Yeah, what are the rules for that?
So California Code of Regulations, Section 2912, says that someone with a psychologist license at the doctoral level from another state, a U.S. territory, or Canada can offer psychological services in California for up to 30 days a year.
Okay, so it's a limited window.
It is.
That's good to know, especially for people who might collaborate with out-of-state colleagues or might be thinking of moving to California.
Yeah, it gives you a sense of the reciprocity rules, even if it's just for a short time.
Right. Okay, so let's sum up all this information about CPD requirements for psychologists in California.
Okay, the main points are the 36-hour requirement every 2 years,
Yep.
those 4 hours in both laws and ethics and cultural diversity and/or social justice,
Got it.
the 6 hours of supervision if you're a supervisor,
Mhm.
keeping detailed records for at least 4 years.
Yes. And understanding the consequences of an inactive or delinquent license and what happens if you don't meet the CPD requirements.
And it's important to remember, these regulations are there for a reason.
Definitely.
They're meant to help psychologists keep growing professionally
Right.
and to make sure that the standards of practice in California stay high.
Exactly, which ultimately benefits everyone, the clients, and the communities we serve.
So for you, our listener, think about this for a minute. How do professionals in your field stay up to date and make sure they're competent? What systems are in place? Are there continuing education models or best practices that you could explore? It's all about lifelong learning, no matter what your area of expertise is.
Couldn't agree more.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure being here.
We'll see you next time.
See you then.
Bye.